Hello and welcome to another episode in the series Life Lessons with Dr. Bob. My guest today is Dr. Li-Meng Yan. You might recall that she was my guest in episode number 12 that was posted in February of this year, and it had to do with COVID, which she believed and she provided detailed evidence to show that the virus was developed in China. At that time, in the late 2020 and early 2021, she was widely criticized and ridiculed for her disclosures. But as we now know, it appears that she was correct. The virus was very likely created in a bioweapons lab in Wuhan, China, at the direction of the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, which we call the CCP. I invited Dr. Yan back today because China is currently very active in world affairs and is a focus of strong interest by the U.S. and other Western countries. Since leaving China in 2020, Dr. Yan has continued her contacts with numerous high-level members of the Chinese government and military, and she has bravely agreed to share important information from those contacts with the U.S. government and with you, our viewers. Li-Meng, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. It's my honor to go back to your interview, join you, and I'm so happy.
Well, you know, China's nefarious activities, both inside China and around the world, have been increasing. I've put together a list of serious issues involving China, and the list has two parts. First, Chinese activities that directly affect the U.S., and secondarily, other worrisome Chinese activities that indicate the repressive nature of the regime and its desire to exert control around the world. The CCP's worrisome activities that directly affect the U.S. are as follows: threatening Taiwan, recent purchases of land by the CCP in the U.S., they're hiring scientists and engineers, and opening their own police departments around the world and in U.S. cities. And the CCP's worrisome activities that show the direction of this repressive regime everywhere are arresting and in some cases killing political opponents, recent mass arrests in China of over 1 million of its citizens prior to a major political meeting, shutting down buildings, neighborhoods, and even entire cities to control its citizens, and other human rights activities and abuses in China. Now, we don't have time to discuss all of those topics. So today we're going to focus on the first set of topics, Chinese actions around the world that have a direct effect on the United States. The first of those topics that Dr. Yan is going to comment on have to do with Taiwan. Let's start with their recent belligerent activities. Before I ask Dr. Yan for her inside information and views on this issue, some of you may wonder why China, first of all, is interested in taking over Taiwan, and why an independent and democratically run Taiwan is so important to the U.S. So just a brief history. In a civil war in China that ended in 1949, the communists, led by Mao Zedong, defeated the nationalists and took over mainland China. The nationalists fled to an island outside of China, of course, called Taiwan, and set up an independent government there. But Beijing has always viewed Taiwan as part of its territory, and it has vowed to eventually unify Taiwan with the mainland using force if necessary. Now, that's the history. So why should the U.S. care about who controls Taiwan? Well, for many years, Taiwan has been and continues to be the world's leading manufacturer of semiconductors. These are chips that are key components in just about everything that we use and rely on every day. TSMC, those are the letters of the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, is the largest semiconductor manufacturing company in Taiwan and in the entire world. It has a 53% market share of the world's leading-edge semiconductor chips. In addition to that, there are other Taiwan-based manufacturers who produce another 10% of the world market. So in total, 63% of all of the advanced chips made in the world come from Taiwan. If Communist China controlled Taiwan, it would therefore control 63% of all the chips made in the world, and those chips are necessary not only in our personal devices, computers, cell phones, TVs, and cars, but more importantly, they're necessary for our military systems, our communication systems, transportation systems, and water systems, and energy systems. The bottom line is this: if China controlled Taiwan, then China, the Communist Party, would control the United States and most of the world. Dr. Yan, we're eager in hearing your views on China's plans regarding Taiwan.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Taiwan is very, very important for America and also the free world. Because first, as you already mentioned, Taiwan is the largest place for the chip manufacture, which in China that they cannot, this kind of chips, high-tech chips cannot be manufactured in mainland China. So when China actually showed their the hospitable attitude to America and the free world to sanction China. And among these kind of actions, chip sanction is very important because that can make China lose their kind of power in the high technology. However, CCP always want Taiwan because they have their own strategy to change the Indo-Pacific area. And also, as you already mentioned, that Xi Jinping and the CCP's ambition is keep growing up, and they want to finally destroy the free world. And the leading country of the free world is the United States. So you are their enemy. And when they try to change the whole international geopolitical situation, Taiwan in that area is very important. So CCP knows on the level of the hot war, they have no any chance to win America at this moment and in a short time. However, CCP has their special way, very soft ways. Thus, you also can hear that the term as unrestricted war. So this is part of their unrestricted war. Mm-hmm. So Xi Jinping's government, they had fully prepared. And as there was an audio I have sent you, which is also published worldwide, and we obtained it from People's Liberation Army in this May. So in that audio, actually, the People's Liberation Army, CCP's military generals, were discussing the mobilization strategy and discussing Xi Jinping's demand about changing China from peacetime to wartime. And because they're preparing the following strategy against Taiwan, and later, of course, the final goal is the whole free world. And in that audio, they have talked about how to get Taiwan by surrounding Taiwan using the military civil fusion tactics. For example, they talked about in one province, Guangdong province, which can be considered as California in US. So they need to recruit over 900 civilian ships. And among the 900 civilian ships, there would be almost 70 10,000 tonnage ro-ro ships. And also they need to recruit another 140,000 soldiers. And these ships will be modified. And so it will carry the soldiers mixed with civilian personnel and also with weaponized equipments on the ships. And they want to surround Taiwan. And also because if they surround Taiwan but not attacking Taiwan directly, it's kind of the other government like US cannot do too much to stop them. And that's why, based on that, later, before August, we received the intelligence from the Central Military Committee in CCP that their tactic against Taiwan in August is to using the surrounding but no attack, and then combine with the internal subversion in Taiwan. They will create the chaos in Taiwan and then try to take over the government. And the very important step is they want to hand over the defense in Taiwan, because they already set up a lot of pro-CCP campaigns in Taiwan, which involved the one of the biggest party in Taiwan, KMT. And the KMT is the party you mentioned that established the government in Taiwan after the Civil War in 1949.
Is that the Kuomintang?
Exactly, Kuomintang, KMT.
All right, let me just make sure that, because you're talking fast, which is good, because I'm trying to listen as fast. So essentially, from the recordings and the speeches that have been made that you've heard about, or actually heard, they are worried about a hot war with the United States, because they realize, at least at this point, they couldn't win a hot war because our military or our weaponry is far superior. But what they're planning or talking about doing is putting an embargo around Taiwan, which isn't really an act of war, I suppose, or wouldn't necessarily drag the Biden administration into a war. And by putting an embargo of all these ships and people on Taiwan, first of all, that would cut off our access to these chips, because these chips come or by ship or by plane, and they will interfere with the aircraft too, in all likelihood. And at the same time, they're trying to influence the political situation in Taiwan so the government will agree to the CCP putting restrictions or running the government. Is that about the summary of what you've said?
Yes, exactly. I mean, they didn't clearly mention the hot war in the mobilization because this is already well known by the CCP members that they cannot beat America and the free world on that level. However, they know once they use this kind of military civilian fusion tactics, like they send those civilian ships around Taiwan, there is nothing other army can do, because if you stop them, then they can claim you attack the Chinese citizens who just want to go fishing or who just travel around that area. However, Taiwan is an island. They can totally block Taiwan in that way, and combined with other tactics based on our intelligence from other aspects, other sources, they will also, like, for example, they try to make the cut off the electricity. And also they can using the hacker method to create this kind of cyber war. And also they have the propaganda. They can use the mainstream media in Taiwan, which manipulated by pro-CCP campaign to spread the anti-government propaganda for CCP. And so there are so many things they are preparing. At that time in August, the best thing they want to do is to peacefully change the government. They can straighten the government staffs, and also they will use the other way to cheat them and combine with the pro-CCP campaigns in their military, in Taiwan's government, in Taiwan's intelligence department, and with the rich people, business guys in Taiwan, and all together, they want to make it happen. So at that time, my team was the first and also the only one reviewed their principles. And also after that, we got the very strong attacks from Taiwan Department of Defense, which denied that there was any CCP's agent was around the President Chai in Taiwan. However, later the things shows there were a lot of CCP's agent in Taiwan in all these kind of fields. And the lucky thing is, at that time, we also delivered the intelligence to the IC departments, the IC contacts to us in US and other countries. So later we say, like, for example,
well, I didn't quite understand that. You use the letters IC. Do you mean intelligence communities? Okay, so not only are you discussing this with me and the viewers, but you are meeting with U.S. government officials in the intelligence community and making them aware of all this.
Exactly. I cannot tell much about the details, but we do have the regular contact with the intelligence staffs. And also, we always update this kind of intelligence. We write the reports, we explain to them, and they verify by themselves.
Yeah.
And
now tell me, do you get the sense that they're just showing up and listening, or that they really care and are worried about this? Because my concern is, under the Biden administration, the level of the people that they put in place are more concerned with the environment, global warming, and transgenderism, and getting uniforms for pregnant service people than they are worried about China. So what is your sense from the people you're meeting with? Are these serious people?
To be honest, I have met many people before, and some of them I met, I don't think they are very seriously, or they don't focus on such information. However, I would like to say that I have met also a lot of great people in America. And these people, I believe that they really love the United States and they want to protect the United States and the free world. So I know that there are a lot of problems also happen in the United States, and it's something like related to humans' weakness and also the problem in the structure of the country. However, I'm happy that I always can say real patriots in the United States, they do their best to help this kind of intelligence deliver to the related departments. And I do also see the feedback. For example, like this Taiwan issue. And in August, we also see that a lot of actions happened. And what we see now is clearly CCP's plan in Taiwan in August failed. And Xi Jinping was very disappointed, although he didn't give up. So I will say that we, of course, want more and more patriots working together to protect the United States. However, I don't think we should be very disappointed, even we are not satisfied with the reality, because we always see good people around. And this is a great part of America, because you cannot say this kind of things back to China, that kind of regime. In United States, it doesn't mean one president or one government control everything. Always people have their freedom. They can fight, they can protest, and they can argue. They always can find a way to solve the problem, and altogether, this help United States survive and also improve.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that in addition to the people in the various intelligence agencies that you're talking to, I would suggest that there are some politicians who you should be talking to, and I'll give it some thought, and I'll send you a list of high-level senators or congressmen who would be very happy to hear what you're, or not happy with what you're saying, but they'd be happy to meet with you and
Sure.
look at this information. Okay.
Thank you. So I'm always very happy to meet the senators, congresspeople, and also like legislators and these people, because I know they have more power to help America. And now it's an urgent time because China already paired with Russia, two crazy dictators, Putin and Xi Jinping. They are together and they support each other. That make the United States get into a very urgent period in the history, because both Russia and China, they want to change the world order. Basically, they want to destroy the freedom.
That's right.
And
That's right.
They have enough power financially and also in the technology and also their
resources.
Exactly. So they all can do quite a lot. However, because America is an open country, welcome everyone, especially in the past decades, CCP pretends as the friends of America. And so in the past decades, CCP has managed a lot of agents infiltrated into America, and they were everywhere. As you say, they now have even their policing system in the United States.
Well, we'll talk about that. And also, and I think it's true, or at least the diary or the Hunter Biden's laptop seems to indicate that the Bidens have had business relationships at a very high level with the Chinese, and that's a very big concern for everyone. And unfortunately, the mainstream media in the United States before the election didn't make it public, and even now it's being suppressed.
Sir, when we talk about Hunter Biden's laptop, actually that is also the one part of the CCP's strategy, try to disturb the election. I didn't mean the selfie pictures are the fake ones. I mean, he took his pictures. However, I just want to say that CCP, based on our intelligence, and also we have received a phone call from CCP's agent to threaten us to stop helping America. And the reason is that no matter what you do, we have our own special weapons that we can manage to get all kind of the evidence to blackmail the celebrities in other government or in other field. That means they can either get it, steal it, or using the illegal way, or they can create it. For example, invite people to some event and create such scandal, whatever. That means it's not one occasional case happened in the last election. I mean, CCP has developed their tactics to create the chaos during election in the democratic countries. And this kind of chaos will give CCP opportunity to gain their benefits. So we would be very, very careful about this kind of chaos. I mean, someone, if they are corrupted, of course, they deserve the punishment from the country. But CCP is using these kind of opportunities. We also need to stop them to create such opportunities for their purposes.
Okay, now let's move on to the second issue of importance regarding CCP's activities in the United States. And a lot of people may not be aware of this, but they have been purchasing farmland, investing in farmland, buying farmland in the United States. And according to a recent U.S. Department of Agriculture report, Chinese state-owned companies, and basically every company of any size is state-owned by the CCP. The report says that these state-owned companies have purchased land, and it surged from about only 13,000 acres in 2010 to more than 350,000 acres in 2020. In dollar terms, the value of the land in the U.S. now owned by China has gone from $81 million in 2010 to $1.8 billion in 2020. That's an increase of 2,000%. More worrisome than just the amount of land is that some of the land is near U.S. military bases. As an example, the Fufeng Group, I understand, bought 300 acres of land in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and set up a milling plant there last spring. That plant is or that's what they say they've done in that plant. That plant is a 20-minute drive from an Air Force base where the U.S. military is scheduled to build systems that will form the background of all of our U.S. military communications around the world. But it might not just be our military secrets that the CCP is interested in. The government-owned Bank of China loaned $4 billion to a Chinese company called the WH Group to buy Smithfield Foods, a leading U.S. producer of pork. So now China controls a large portion of the U.S. food supply, at least the pork supply. Another example of their long-term planning for world domination is here a Chinese billionaire, and Chinese billionaires are always controlled by the CCP because at a whim, the CCP can take away anything they own. So these billionaires will do whatever the CCP says. And they lend him money, $110 million, to buy 15,000 acres of farmland in Texas. And this billionaire says he plans to build a wind turbine farm on 15,000 acres. And that would give, if he did that, that would give him, and therefore the CCP, direct access to the entire electricity grid in Texas, which is, of course, connected to the grid in across the United States. So give us your insights, if you have knowledge about what the CCP is doing with the land that they're buying. What are their plans?
Sir, you're talking about very good topic because the concern about the CCP purchasing lands in America is increasing now. And when you talk about the Fufeng Group, actually, I have sent you one report that's done by our team. Even back to February, we got a request from the intelligence community. They wanted us to help to investigate the Fufeng Group and their purpose for purchasing the land, the background knowledge. So what I can tell you is Fufeng Group and the big land they purchased is just a small part of the things CCP has done in the United States in this way. The purposes are multiple. So first, when you talk about the food supply, yes, China always wants to disrupt the food supply chain in the United States. And this was already well stated in one People's Liberation Army's textbook, a document, which is called Biosecurity, and which was reviewed by me the first time in the world last year. They talked about the biosecurity, which for them, it means their unrestricted bioweapon program that besides using pathogens like virus, bacteria, and the food supply chain is another very useful field to conduct the biowarfare because they can use transgenetic technology to change the plants, and also they can introduce this, the different kind of the insects which would damage the local farms. And altogether, they want to use the biological technology to create the damage to Americans' food supply. And once there is lack of food supply, they basically feel they have destroyed America in a very good level.
So in other words, a doomsday scenario about this would be that they're buying farms around the country and they're going to experiment with either various insects or various diseases that are spread among crops to destroy all of the crops in America. That is a doomsday scenario, but it's not impossible. It is not impossible. It is within the realm of science to be able to do that.
It's very actually practical. And especially when you check Fufeng Group, you will surprisingly find that they connected closely to the military, CCP's military medical academy, and directly connected to certain bioweapon expert like Yang Ruifu, who was already identified by my team in the Yan reports that Yang is one of the principal bioweapon experts involved into COVID-19's development in China.
And if you, I hate to say the beauty of this, but the horror of this is that unlike a hot war where you can know where the missile came from because we have tracking satellites around the world, you can't really know where a virus came from. You can suspect, but even in the early days of the COVID, nobody, you were saying it came from China, but most of the Democrats and most of the media said that was nonsense, right? It came from bats, but it wasn't really a weapon. And the same thing would be true about attacking our food supply. It would be very difficult to prove that these insects were developed intentionally to destroy America, or that the various diseases that plants get were sent by China. It would be difficult to prove and therefore difficult to respond against them. It's incredibly brilliant.
Yeah, in this way, that's why Xi Jinping always said we should have the bottom line thinking, which means you should break through the bottom line, which means you should use everything you can do and don't think about humanity, but just to achieve the goals of Xi Jinping and the CCP. So in this case, once they control the scientists like Dr. Fauci in the agriculture field, so they definitely can create the nature origin theory again, which will be very difficult to prove. However, this is just one purpose. And the other purpose include that, that some land is very close to the American military base. So CCP would set up their equipment there, set up their teams there to collect all these kind of signals, data from Americans' military base. And also they can do something to disrupt the practice in the American military if it's necessary. And also, for example, if American government need to enlarge the military base, for example, in the wartime, they may need to rent the land from CCP. And that means basically CCP can directly control the things happened in that land in American military. This kind of tactics are very hidden, very cunning, but very dangerous for American security.
Yes, and it's because we're a free country. In most countries, or many countries, foreigners are not allowed to own land. They're not allowed to own land. You have to be a citizen to own land. And there are countries where nobody can own land. The government owns it all, and you're just getting a lease on it. But in America, we let anybody virtually buy anything. And so this is going to be very, very difficult, even if the government knew, even if we all knew that China's buying land, and we do know these are Chinese companies, then there's nothing we can do about it.
I can see that there are some actions ongoing, but of course that's not enough yet. And also another purpose I can tell you now, including that CCP, not only in Texas, North Dakota, also it happened in South Dakota, in Hawaii, in many other states. And CCP also, there were native people in different states, and the natives, they actually have more authority in that land, and they can control the land. They have their own community. They can vote to make their own laws. And CCP using their capitals to establish the very good connections with these natives in different states. And what will happen is, if you already heard that several months ago, CCP actually managed to turn Solomon Islands from pro-America to pro-CCP. They even stopped American Navy to park in their harbors. And that will be a very good example to show you what will happen to these states if CCP can successfully turn the local people like the Solomon Islands local people. So basically, they will manage to infiltrate into the communities, and also they will manage to get the voting this kind of rights and change their laws. And then after that, CCP will also work with scientists like the archaeologists. They will establish the theory to tell you, from the ancient time, this land should be independent. And the American government is very cruel. White people kill the native people and kill the colorful people. So they will create such very hatred theory. And then they will create the division in local place to divide these people from America. And this will be very dangerous. And if you don't stop it in advance, it will be very difficult to handle it once it happens.
Extremely dedicated and extremely nefarious, and it's working on many different levels. That's the most frightening part. It's not just developing advanced weapons, which you could track. So another topic of concern in China is it's trying to advance its military technology by recruiting scientists from our own U.S. weapons laboratories. The CCP has specific programs specifically designed to recruit overseas scientists to increase China's technology, and it's specifically technology related to military uses. According to a recent report, the CCP has been successful at stealing and capitalizing on our own research and development efforts. Between 1987 and 2021, the CCP hired and returned to China 162 scientists from our Los Alamos National Laboratory. Now, Los Alamos specializes in developing new technologies for national security. Los Alamos carries out research and development work on nuclear weapons, on intelligence gathering, and counterterrorism. And many of those 162 scientists are now working in China to advance key military technologies, including hypersonic missiles and deep earth penetrating warheads. According to the FBI, China's talent recruitment programs have now resulted in a tangible national security threat to the United States. In a speech just last week, Jeremy Fleming, the head of Britain's equivalent to our national security agency, warned that Beijing is developing advanced technologies to control markets, to control people, by extending surveillance and censorship with the objective of exporting its authoritarian systems around the world. Tell us what you've heard about the theft of our technology and the recruiting away, and I will say theft of our technologists.
This is the people's war in the technology part. So people's war means CCP has enough people they can send to America, and also they can use these people to infiltrate into the academic field, no matter the virology or nuclear weapon or hypersonic weapon labs. They have enough people. They have put a lot of money to support these people to steal things and to establish the network to compromise the scientists in America, and then finally just get their outcomes. So the 150 scientists you mentioned from Los Alamos is just a very, very teeny part of CCP's academic agents in U.S. And of course, not only in U.S., they are everywhere worldwide. And
now, let me just interrupt, and I'll tell you some personal experience. I was studying high-energy physics at Cornell as a graduate student, and then I was studying nuclear fusion at MIT, and I was amazed that there are foreign students who are allowed to take these courses. That was way back when. That was in the 70s, that we were accepting foreign graduate students into this country. And by the way, when they graduated, we didn't give them citizenship, which would have been good. They went back to their own country. So and many of these were Asian. I assume some were Chinese. And here's the story. We actually educated Chinese scientists, Chinese students, to be scientists, to be actively involved in R&D in high-energy physics and in nuclear fusion. So I don't understand why the government didn't place regulations on colleges to limit the recruiting or accepting as graduate students for these specialized programs. If you want to come here and study, women's studies, or you want to study history or language, that's fine. You can come from any part of the world. But when it comes to studying technology, we were so stupid to start to educate. I know a lot of the scientists in Iran who have worked on the program to develop nuclear weapons in Iran came to the United States. That's where you learned this stuff. You don't go to South Africa to learn this stuff.
So the thing is, actually, first, in the past decades, CCP pretends to be America's friend. And so Americans always feel that when they help China, they are helping their friends. And they never know. Actually, CCP never stopped their plans to destroy America. Just Xi Jinping make it more aggressive, but it doesn't mean the things didn't happen before Xi Jinping. And what I can tell you something to explain your question, that why these students come to America and learn it and go back, they don't even get citizenship. For example, China has their special scholarship program. They made the agreement with NIH, and China will send the Chinese student, many of them even have the military background, to NIH, and NIH doesn't need to pay this student anything. China government pay the scholarship. So these people are free laborers for the scientists in NIH and other labs. And after their study, the scientists in America get a lot of achievement in academic field. And of course, if they are friendly with China, China can help them to get promotion in the world-class academic field. while these students just go back to China with the things they learned, and also they even can bring the scientists in America back to China, and China will use a lot of money, reputation, or even girls, all these things to attract them to stay in China or help China to develop the technology. So basically, this is because of the greedy part of the scientists in the United States and the people who make this policy. They want to use free labors from countries like China, especially China, and they want to enjoy the money from China to sponsor their work. So they forget the security in the academic field. And of course, actually in many fields, especially like I'm familiar with the virology field, because of the high speed of the development in the technology, actually we don't have enough surveillance for this kind of technology. And we have no way to stop the academic espionage. We have no way to stop this kind of academic scandals. So this field become a very good place for CCP to enhance their influence. And finally, they can use the money and their tactics to capture those elites, use them. For example, like the virology field, now the Americans start to realize, oh, Fauci was lying. And also Peter Daszak in EcoHealth was lying. And Ralph Baric in the North Carolina University was lying. So they are angry. And also they are angry why NIAID sponsors China using American taxpayers' money to develop the coronavirus. So people start to believe America is sponsoring China to create the bioweapon. However, no. I would like to tell people it's easy to understand. You just image CCP are using the parasite tactics against America. They send these people to America like parasites go to your body. So these people grab your money, they grab your technology, grab your talent people. It's like the parasite gets the nutrition in your body, but still destroy your health.
I can give another example. I can give another example. Just last year, I visited my alma mater, MIT, and there's an entire group there that focuses on advancing the state of the art of artificial intelligence. Very, very advanced work. And I became, I visited the lab. Every student, every graduate student in that lab was Chinese. And they're probably naive, they're young kids, but they're going to grow up. And unfortunately, because of the nefarious methods of the CCP is going to put lots of pressure on them to disclose what they're doing to the CCP. And the CCP can do it in various ways. They can just threaten the families. The families of those kids are not allowed to leave China, okay? It's the students are allowed to leave because they're going to become, like you said, they're going to become essentially spies for China. But the parents aren't going to leave, and therefore these young students are going to be subject to blackmail. One way or another, they're either going to willingly do it because they love China, or they're going to do it because they're blackmailed or pressured. So, the United States government got to get a lot smarter here. And I hate to say it, but we have to keep Chinese students from coming to the United States to study these topics. We have to just put a ban on it.
I believe there are such actions happen, and actually, based on my knowledge, in certain fields that the Chinese students are not allowed to do some program or in some labs. However, the thing is not only about the people from China, it's also about American scientists. As I said, once there was such connection happened, so the scientists in America, no matter American citizens or Canadian citizens, they can be attracted by CCP to attend the conference, to have the joint collaboration, and to visit China. And China has developed a very well psychological warfare, this kind of tactics against each target. As I said, people's war, they have enough people and they put enough money to do this. So basically, once a target get into the trap, it's almost impossible for them to come out.
Understood. So they can either bias these scientists, these American scientists, by paying them a lot of money, giving them large grants, or they can compromise them one way or another. Yeah, that's likely happening also. It's very frightening, and the next topic is very much related to this. The next topic we're going to talk about are the fact that the CCP is opening police stations around the world. Now, they call them police units or citizen help centers, but we know what they do. They are actually undercover spies who are hired and placed in around the world, including in the United States. In the past year, Chinese authorities have opened 100 of what they call police service centers in 30 countries around the world. One of the first ones that they opened is still existing in New York City today. Now, the CCP says that these police service centers are meant to carry out a worldwide anti-corruption campaign that they have termed Operation Fox Hunt. They describe Fox Hunt as an effort to find Chinese citizens who are wanted for crimes committed in China and convince them to return to China for trial. Now, mind you, they've been accused of a crime in China, but a crime in China could very easily just be what she is telling us about disclosing what the Chinese are planning. That is a crime in China. Now, the FBI reports that Fox Hunt was planned by Xi Jinping to target Chinese nationals living outside of China who are critical of the CCP and to suppress their dissident activities. Now, when he was head of the FBI 2 years ago, Christopher Wray gave an example of one Fox Hunt target. He came to the FBI and told them he was given a choice by these undercover people to either return to China for trial or to commit suicide. That was the choice he was given. So this is happening as we speak in New York, perhaps other cities too. I just know about the one in New York, where they are placing these individuals who are undercover, who are spies, whose goal is to destroy the dissident activity by the Chinese in America, people like Dr. Yan, who are standing for truth and freedom and who are telling us about all these nefarious activities that the Chinese are not only planning, but actually carrying out. Tell us, I know that you are currently a target of Operation Fox Hunt. Tell us about that.
Yes, sir. So actually, when you talk about that, CCP would describe all these kind of anti-CCP speech actions as crime. And when I left China, left Hong Kong, just immediately, among my friends, there are people already on behalf of the place published a statement on social media, ask people to report everything they know about me because the action I'm doing, leave Hong Kong to tell the truth of COVID in United States, is a crime. They already stated that. And after that, as a target, I have suffered a lot. I mean, even now, I'm still the target because CCP will never give up any target. They want to show their absolute power against all the dissidents. So their style, including using your family member, using your friends, control them, torture them, and cheat them, initially try to persuade you to come back voluntarily. But if you refuse, the method including send your family member to the other country to try to meet you and then persuade you back to China. And if you don't collaborate with them, they also have the backup plan, which is they will kidnap you or they will let you commit suicide. And in my case, I'm the only child in my family, and my parents, they are still in mainland China. They're over 65 years old now, and I have to cut off all the connection with my parents and all the friends, all the family members in China, because CCP has using this kind of tortures against them, try to use them to push me back to China from the beginning. And I refuse to be to be persuaded, and I have to cut off the connection. But they also use my husband. My husband is not even Chinese citizen. He's the scientist working in the University of Hong Kong, and he is a Sri Lanka citizen. But he's also used by CCP to go to America twice, and now he's still in America. Working with CCP, try to find the opportunity to meet me, either persuade me to go back, or based on the intelligence I received, they want to create the emotional killing, because between the couples, the emotional killing looks very natural. And so you cannot find the evidence to prove that CCP made me disappear. So these are all the things they're doing to me. And also they keep using other like combined with associations, something you will heard like the China Youngs Association or China Business Association in America, or all this kind of association actually is their United Front network. That means they are CCP's branches, offices overseas to control the Chinese people and also to influence the non-Chinese people to accept the CCP's propaganda to help CCP. So this United Front network also helps the police system to persecute the dissident. And for me, for example, I'm under a lot of this persecution, which I cannot tell it in the media at this moment, but you will know it in the future. And also, I want to emphasize one thing. Police in China is different from American police. They are the military-based, the law enforcement team. Because CCP is a dictatorship regime, so the police in China and overseas, they only be loyal to CCP and Xi Jinping. They listen to CCP and Xi Jinping. So basically, they can do everything for Xi Jinping and CCP.
I recently spoke to a businessman, Chinese, born in China, lived in China, lives here now, and he wants to go back and finalize some business deals, but they gave him these documents that he has to sign before they'll give him a visa, even though he's Chinese, where he has to swear allegiance to the CCP and he has to attest that he's never criticized the CCP and would never do it again. This is something that Americans we would not understand. We've been living in freedom for hundreds of years in this country now, and to imagine that there's a country and a dictator, a despot, an evil individual who truly wants to control human thought, not only actions, he wants to control your thought process. Now, what would happen, I'm sure you're not applying for a visa to go back to China. What do you think would happen if you went back?
I mean, first, if it happened, if I'm caught by them, I cannot guarantee I will get back to China alive. Because first, based on the intelligence, they want to create an emotional killing, and that will make me shut up forever and very safe for them.
Tell us, what do you mean by emotional killing? I didn't understand.
Emotional killing, because they send my husband here.
Yes.
They want to create the opportunity to make me meet my husband. And because I already cut off my connection with my husband for over 2 years, and I know he was helping CCP even try to poison me before I leave Hong Kong. So they know that I will be definitely, if I met him in whatever occasion, we won't have the very sweet conversation. And also they definitely can create more problems between us, conflicts. And once there will be such things, they definitely can use the chance to make me killed in whatever way, and then they can say this is just happened in the family.
Oh, okay. The language is a little difficult language, but I think what you're saying is that they could influence you emotionally and then kill you and make it look like you killed yourself, like suicide.
Oh, my husband did that, and even they could make my husband commit suicide after that. That's up to them. They have different tactics.
Yeah, but saying they make you commit suicide, that's not suicide. Suicide is when a person ends their life voluntarily because they want to for one reason or another. What you're saying is murder. And we've already, all of us have read stories about famous Chinese businessmen who committed suicide by jumping off a building, or they were in the mountains and they fell off the mountain while taking photographs. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about them killing you.
Yes. It's like some Russian, the very rich guys recently
Right.
fall out of the window from hospital, commit suicide according to report.
Right.
So this kind of suicide,
That's
basically murder.
Murder. Okay. Well, you've been very brave. I want to thank you for joining me today, and thank you, Li Meng, for so much more, for your bravery, for risking your own safety in order to continue to expose important information about the CCP's goals and well-funded efforts to expand its influence around the world.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. It's a very nice conversation with you, and people need to understand CCP because CCP is so cunning and looks very friendly to you, and they will use you and then they will destroy you without your knowledge. So now it's an urgent time and we must do the actions, and before that, we have to help people fully understand CCP.
Well, I think there will be yet another episode with you, Dr. Yan. And I want to thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this episode of Life Lessons with Dr. Bob, please subscribe and you'll be automatically notified of future podcasts in the series. Good night, and good night to you, Dr. Yan.
Good night.